Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Songwriter's Journey, the series where we sit down with some of the most influential songwriters in modern music. In this episode, we're going to head up to Nashville and talk to one of the most prolific songwriters in the music industry, Bonnie Baker. Having worked with artists such as Hunter Hayes and Rachel Platten, Bonnie brings to the table a wealth of songwriting experience. Sit back and enjoy this episode and learn how to tap into your inner creative self.
Tell us how you got started in your career. I know a little bit of your story, but was there something that really was a turning point for you?
It's interesting. I was listening to some podcasts this morning, and I think the Mary Chapin Carpenter record was the first time I heard music made in Nashville that wasn't necessarily super twangy.
Mm-hmm.
It was still storytelling, but her voice and, just the sound of her voice, but how she phrased things, how she did, wasn't like a twang.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up loving a Patsy Cline or Reba and all of the like giants of our music, but they were always way more country than I was. So when Roseanne Cash and Mary Chapin Carpenter came along and I heard those records, I was living in Austin, Texas, and I was like, oh, maybe I fit in Nashville a little more than I think. So I literally, started making my plans to move to town, and I was writing in Austin and working, playing in cover bands. And I shake my head because that is just the hardest work in the world. It's just 3 a.m. You're putting your amps in the back of a, van. And so I was kind of worn out, after playing in cover bands for several years. You make good money, but you just wear out,
Mm-hmm.
So I was really looking for a way to, expand my work and actually support myself as a songwriter. So I think when that Chapin record came out, it really kind of indicated, oh, Nashville may be ready for people that are not, you know, Hank Sr. And then there was Hank Jr., neither of which I really connected with. I was more of a Townes Van Zandt person, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's what made me move to Nashville, was hearing music that I heard myself in a little more.
Did you always know that you wanted to do music, or did you have another career planned out before that? Like, were you going to be something totally different?
I got a degree in English, and I started my master's in English, and I chose actually Handmaid's Tales was one of my.
That's amazing.
It was one of my books that I chose, and Margaret Atwood and Ann Tyler were the authors that I chose to finish I was going to finish my master's degree. And I got a job right out of college teaching high school English. And I literally was 3 months into it, and I just was like, this is not for me. I enjoyed teaching. I did not enjoy public school.
Mm-hmm.
I did not enjoy the politics of small town Texas. I did not enjoy all of the things that went with teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my kids, and I loved supporting them, and I loved nurturing them. But all of what teachers go through is just, I don't know that anyone will ever know that. Honestly, on an honest level, I grew up playing basketball, and I wanted to play basketball so badly. And I was short and I was slow. I had a good outside shot, but I went to several universities and colleges, and even 2-year colleges, like doing tryouts, and I just didn't get a scholarship, didn't get on any team, even practice teams. And my high school coach, basketball coach, sat me down and said, maybe basketball is not going to be your life, but when you play music, it's really something. And I don't know now if he just was trying to get me out of his office crying, and he was just like, let's tell her whatever she needs to know. But those words were important, that I loved writing. And I thought at first I would write fiction, like short stories, novels, that kind of thing. And I have a short attention span, so landed on a song, 3 minutes long. And although it can take weeks and weeks and weeks to write 3 minutes, but so yeah, made the move to Nashville because I just needed to be around songwriters,
Yeah.
yeah, just wanted to be around the people doing it.
When you're writing, I know, like, as you write, you always talk about the development, and I love it because it's a craft.
Mhm.
Do you, as a songwriter and a producer as well,
Mhm.
is there a process that you've learned that was particularly helpful to you? I know people always wonder that with a hit songwriter, like,
Right.
how do you do this every time?
I love to study the numbers,
Yeah.
like of the top 20 of any week. How long are the songs? What key are they in? What beats per minute are they? What do the choruses feel like? I study commercial music because, um, I can write songs all day long and put them on my computer. My hope and desire is for as many people to hear them as possible.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is look at the markers of what are people gravitating to. And through the years, I've learned that the voice brings them in. I feel like melody and voice brings them in, and lyric keeps them in. So lyrics have to be absolutely spot on. I have learned how to not feel like they have to be perfect because there is no such thing.
No such thing.
I can hear a song of mine, 7 years later, and I still wish that third word in the bridge was different. You know what I mean? It's like I can still find something that I wish I had edited a little more. But at some point, songs are not done for me. There's a stopping point.
Yeah.
So I don't have a formula, but I do have a desire to create commercial music that will reach as many people as possible. So there's a hierarchy of need. So we all need air, we all need food, we all need water, we all need love. And as you go down the hierarchy of need, like if you write a song about air, sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe and to
Yeah.
love you. That one line of a song, those are two of the hierarchies of need. So I try to keep the subject matter as broad and open as possible. But then when you come down the hierarchy of need, someone who is in my age group or someone who is female, we may have a different need than a male.
Right.
And that's okay to specify that I'm only reaching half of the population on the earth. Actually 52%, but who's counting?
True.
If we would vote in a block, we wouldn't have to put up with this mess. But anyway, we may have certain needs that other people do not. So as you come away from the tippy top of the hierarchy, you're going to find subjects are going to get a little more. There are some guys that can enjoy a song that's written by a female that is for a female. There's certain girls, many more girls, that I think really live in that space of they love their guys to talk about hunting and fishing and the things that guys talk about. So I'm not saying those things don't come across, but I keep in mind where we are on that and how to make it as applicable to as many people. So, and then honestly, it's just honesty. It's like, what is in the room today and what do we feel like we want to say? And yes, most of my career has been writing with other people, writing with artists. A lot of times it's writing with artists early in their career. So that to me is helping them find their DNA. The thing is they know their DNA. They just have to put a language to it.
I love that.
I'm not telling them what to say. I'm helping them learn how to say what they know how to say, but they just haven't learned yet. And, I have moved into more of a creative coaching type reality for myself. in that I sit with a 15-year-old and I listen very carefully to what they're saying, and I help them learn how to say that in a way that is applicable to as many 15-year-olds as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a go in and take over a session. I don't tell them, well, if you want to have a hit, you need to do this. I will guide. I will
Yeah.
guide them. But I do think that there are hit choruses. I do think a song over about 3 minutes and 15 seconds is probably not going to be a hit. I do think that, and then the minute I say that on camera, someone's going to go, yeah, but look at there's always rule breakers.
There's always rule breakers.
But you pull up, the Beatles top 50 hits and they're under 3 minutes, So there are things. Max Martin is one of my absolute heroes.
Yeah.
And the man has a formula. He's talented beyond belief, but he also knows what a hit song feels like. So there is writing to write, to be a journal, to be a personal diary of your life.
Yeah.
And then there's writing to include other people in. And that means you have to say it in a way that is the language that they speak. That's it. That's my formula, is saying it in a way that people hear and understand what you're saying. It's communication. That's all it is.
And storytelling, I think, at its finest. I love how you've kind of broken down the psychology of that and addressed it, because I think as a songwriter, they sometimes think, and we all do that, right? We think, I'm writing this and this is just from my heart and it's from my diary, and it may be wonderful, but no one in the room is getting what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, if you're too and yes, art can be absolutely mysterious. I am all about that. I am all about people keeping a diary. I'm all about people, being mysterious. That's not me. If that's what they want, then they don't really need a co-writer.
Yeah.
I walk into rooms and there are some rooms that I don't need to be in. So the wisdom for me has come in learning how to call that.
Yeah. When you're working on a project, because you've not only written with people and mentored them while being a co-writer, but you also produce. And when you're brought in that broad spectrum, I'm curious to know what your process is, because everybody has a different process for that, from the creation to the completion. What does that look like for you, Bonnie Baker?
That is a great question. That has changed and will probably always continue to change. I went into this process of a writing, kind of creative coaching, kind of just being someone's sidekick. There's neither one of us were ahead or behind. We were side by side. And I love the image of that, riding into the sunset side by side with someone you're working with. As I have morphed into wanting to produce more and producing more, I'm realizing that we are side by side, but they have their job and I have my job. And each project is different. Sometimes I come into a project and I literally need to write the songs with them because they don't have what they're happy with. So I'll do that. I'll come into a project and they need for me to listen through 25, 30 songs to get to the 3 songs we're going to do, or 4 songs. I also rely on other ears. I sometimes get too far into something and I'm not objective. So I have people that I will call on and say, here are the 7 songs we've narrowed it down to. Help me out here. Sometimes I need to do that. Sometimes I need to go find songs. That's that email at 3 a.m. to all of my friends. Like, what song is on your computer that has never been cut and you don't understand why? And I'll get songs from, Stephen Dale Jones, or, they'll send me songs that are just work tapes. And so I'll go looking for those uncut songs that are like incredibly great, and they've never been caught before. So, I mean, so that's also part of putting a project together. Do we need a song that this would fill? Sometimes my job is to hire the right players. Sometimes my job is to hire the right engineer. Sometimes my job is to um, um, I'm a studier.
Yeah. Me too.
Sometimes my job is to study what is not working or what is working with an artist. And a big part of that is kind of dishonesty. Like someone will come in with the idea of what their parents or their label or their publisher wants them to be, but they're not there yet. And or they're not gonna be there. They're in a whole, they're saying wear blue and they're like, but I like to wear red. And so my job is to suss that out and go, I really think you need to wear red because I think red is your color. It's putting pieces of a puzzle together that makes sense, that is commercial and that is under budget and on schedule. It's not that hard, really.
Also, there are unicorns involved. So.
Yeah, and also there are unicorns involved. And, I always prepare and work hard and then wait for the magic. I'm going to be on time. I'm going to have the environment set up so that it's conducive to creativity. And then I'm going to let the universe do its job, which is to create the magic and it just is opening yourself up to those moments that are just unexplainable. And so that's my job as well, is to ask that in. Because sometimes I'm working with someone who's not old enough to really understand the powers of the soul and the powers of music yet. They just turn on their radio or they put in their earbuds, and they're listening to digital music constantly, and they're doing a life that they feel called to do, but they haven't really experienced the full magic of it yet.
Yeah.
So I'm also helping someone walk up to the edge of the universe and explore the magic of music and the making of it. And sometimes I've had people ask me, well, what is your plan for the day? And my plan of the day was just to not have a plan and to just
I love that.
put all the people together that needed to be put together, have some good coffee, have a great place, have the lights a certain way, and then stand back and watch and see what happens. There's no explaining it, and sometimes I stand and wait for it to happen and it doesn't.
What do you do in those moments
when it doesn't happen? There still will be some great things that come out of it. I'm not one to throw everything out. I take what gifts are there for me and call it a day and then start again the next day. I don't call it a loss. It just is what it is. And sometimes the magic is just not happening. And then sometimes the magic's not happening because I haven't waited long enough. I sometimes get impatient. And if, a session is 3 hours in and it's not happening yet, it may happen in hour 5.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I've learned is sometimes I just need to stop being impatient and allow things to happen,
Which is important, I think, for people to hear that are not there yet in their career, because we all are impatient just as human beings, but we're
Something's wrong.
failing
Yep.
in some way.
Yeah. And I think my best example of that is Hunter Hayes and I and Katrina Elam. The three of us wrote a lot in the early days, and we had 3 on that first record. It was hard to get us together because Katrina lives in a different state and Hunter was busy, after that first album. It was a scheduling nightmare to kind of get us together, but we got together, started that morning and worked all day on something, and it just felt weird and flat and just, and I'm in my brain, I'm like, is it me?
Yeah.
Did I not show up at my best self? And or are we all tired, or are we done? Because I do think writing relationships can be over. So in my brain, I'm going through all of this, and so at some point, I just stopped and said, "What's going on? We're not connecting yet."
Yeah.
So Katrina shares something that kind of was in her brain of she had read an article about bullying, and so she tells the story of what she read and how that felt, and she has 2 sons, and and she was like, it just made me think about this. Well, what she didn't know is that my kid was going to a school that the kids found out he was a vegetarian, so at lunch they would throw meat at him
Oh
because they
my
thought it was
God.
funny. And Hunter was sitting there, and he, just kind of quietly says, yeah, I mean, high school was a nightmare for me. And so we start talking about that, and all of a sudden the room is just lit up, and that's where Invisible came from.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, it was 3, 4 in the afternoon, and we'd been working all day. We immediately got on to something. We started writing it. He had that little piano part and started kind of roughing it out. By midnight, we had it finished, but it took us more than half a day to get there.
Yeah.
And so that's where honesty comes in.
Mm.
If everybody was like, yeah, we're fine, let's just keep on, beating down this idea, we would have never had that song. And that's what I say. Is like, I want to get to the song we're supposed to get to.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what's meant for me will not miss me. What's meant for me will not pass me by. I just have to know when it's not when it's not meant for me, just let it go, because if your arms are full of stuff that you're not meant to have, you can't reach down and pick up what is meant for you. And in that day and in that moment, it just, the fun ditty that we were working on just wasn't where I was that day. It wasn't where Katrina was, and it wasn't where Hunter was. And so once we were all honest with each other and called it, then we could pick up what was meant for us that day. So, and the journey of that song was just, it was an incredible thing. I had left a publishing company and was, I'd had some success. So I was like, maybe I'm done. I don't know. And I'm starting on a new journey, but I'm still writing with these 2 people because I love them. And then that song, it's just, that was a moment of like, okay, I'm not done yet, so kept me going for a few years.
That's just like gold. I want to hover on that for a minute. That it's just, if you can't let go of all of the things that you think are yours that aren't, you can't have what actually is.
What actually is meant for you.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
It's every relationship is that way. So that's been a life-changing thing for me to realize,
Yeah.
because I hold on to all of it.
Same. I'm like, but I might not be ready to let go.
Right.
As Frozen plays in the
This
background.
person did this to me like 20 years ago. I got to hold on to it. And it's like, no, you really don't.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Bonnie. We'll discuss songwriting, creativity, and co-writing, as well as her work with people such as Hunter Hayes and Rachel Platten.